Hey everyone, today we have a Mantis and it has a little bit of a compression problem. At least that's what I'm told. I'm kind of questioning that, to be honest. It doesn't feel all that horrible in there. The fuel I know came from a person who does use non-ethanol, and they said they just put it in there about 2 months ago. So it's not fresh by any means. And the carb they said they replaced, it was a Amazon carb, but they said they replaced it. And then after that point, still wasn't working, so they decided to pitch it, give it to me, and here we are. So I think what I want to do is I want to give this a pull. Something I did notice is when I was moving the spark plug boot around a little, the spark plug is not even tight. So I'm going to, let's look at the spark plug while we're here. It's a Bosch. Let's try pulling it over, and I'm going to have to look. You unfortunately are not going to be able to see this, but unfortunately that's how the cookie crumbles. You just have to take my word for it. Now there's spark, which is, I don't want to say weird, but it has a lot of resistance with no plug in there. That's not good. Maybe we do have a bad or blown engine. I don't know. This is Marvel Mystery Oil. And let that coat it in there a little bit. See, that's what I was expecting. Okay, that's feeling a whole lot better. It could be the fact that there was fuel in there at one point, fuel dried. Now I just coated my plug with oil. Anyway, fuel dried, got a little gummy. That has then loosened the gumminess. Hopefully. Let's find a different plug. It's a Champion. It's not new, but it's a good used plug. Good plug to be checking if there's a problem, you know? You know what I mean? Probably. This is 2-cycle fuel. Square directly into the cylinder. If this does turn on, we are going to be in for a little bit of a smoke show with all that oil in there. But who doesn't like a good smoke show? It is just finger tight, but we'll tighten it if it works. It is on start. Wow, that was a absolutely great noise. Let's get you a better viewpoint, why don't we? That's the problem with a table like this. You have to put the, well, for this one, the engine at a point where the blade, or the, not engine, well I guess the engine, but the tiller at a point where the blades are not going to be hitting the table. So I'm full throttling it. Well, I heard something going on in there. Not a whole lot of something, but something. Try to choke. Could very well be the fact that we fouled the plug. I got this a long time ago. I just never actually did anything with it. That's exactly what we did. We fouled a plug pretty heavily. I don't know if that was from the choke. It smells like a combination of marble and fuel. Wipe that off. Dry this off. I think my compressor's off. Let's see. Yeah, but there was just enough air to help us out. I'm going to put the plug in. Take off the air cover, or the air filter cover. Has a new air filter, probably the one that came with the kit. And with the open with full throttle, I'm gonna spray a little carb cleaner, or I guess this is brake cleaner. I actually have a straw for this one. Those usually go missing pretty quickly. Okay, full throttle. Let's give this a whirl. Let's do a little thinking. My thought is we're going to look at the exhaust. First we're going to check to see if it's plugged. If it's free. I'll look at the piston through the exhaust. Because that will tell us pretty much anything we need to know. Why is this not working? Is it just this one? Those work. I'm gonna fiddle with this and get the cover off. Kind of a side note, there's two screws here and they don't like to be played with very well. Ah. Of course, this is not the best tools either. It really is kind of aggravating. Nah, I need to work on that. Wow, that was aggravating. That screw in the bottom was just not coming off. I have a feeling we're going to have very similar of the same problem with this next set, but one can hope that I am wrong. Oh, okay, so far so good. So while I'm doing this, I'll explain my theory. Well, I'm thinking. It's not really theory. But if your engine has a plugged exhaust, it happens all the time on 2 cycles because of just the nature of how they run with oil, and the spark arrestor can cause a big problem. Spark arrestor is right here, and so far it's not looking very dirty. That is not a problem at all. So we have a different problem, which is unfortunate. But let's see here. So I do see smoke come out of it though, so it was doing something. Surprised these came off that easy. At the very least, if we do have to change the piston and cylinder, it's right there. It's a beautiful part about this engine. It's really easy to work on because it's just so small. Now the hard part is getting those rings. I have a set, I just don't know where they are. Here's my predicament. I tested the compression and got to, well, I released it, but about 110 pounds. So that's very acceptable. I do not believe the engine is of any problem here. So I took off the flywheel, and when I was taking off the flywheel, the seal just came off. That could be, important. This seal will be the determining factor if or how the fuel is mixed with air. In addition, this is not a standard flywheel setup. Let me take the compression meter off so I can spin it over easier. And what I mean by that is this. Usually there's a keyway, maybe even just a key that goes into a keyway. Sometimes it's part of the flywheel. Everything's a little bit different. This one has a flat spot in it, right there. That flat spot then corner lines with this flat spot. And when I took it off, I think the flat spot on here was a little bit different, a little bit off. So I'm gonna look at this seal. I want to see if I could just clean it up. If not, I'll order a new one, or I might have another one. I mean, it's just a seal. I'll look and see if I have another one. If not, then we'll have to improvise. But we're going to get that cleaned up, and then we will go ahead and put it back together and see if we can get it started. But I really don't think there's anything wrong with the engine compression wise. I think it was either the seal went bad or just fell out, and or it the time was off, because this was really hard to get off. I mean, I definitely had a little bit of a problem. So you could kind of tell. So let's see here. This flat spot is pretty much in line with this fin that's on the end of the magnet. Something to also check every now and then if you don't have spark is how magnetic is the magnet. You want it to at least be able to do that. So that is roughly top dead center. Now, top dead center for this one would be right about there. So that flywheel fin would be very close to the end of this little section of the coil. It was not. It was probably more along the lines of the screw hole, or as I'm told I should say, fastener. But I'm going to look for that seal, put it in, put the covers back on. We'll give this another pull and see what exactly is going on there. As a side note, when I was taking off the flywheel, it was a real pain, and it's really hard to kind of hold on to it while, because it's such a small shaft, while putting pressure behind it. And unfortunately, when I used the air hammer, it kind of boogered up one of the threads. I do not have a die that is big enough to kind of clean it. I mean, I do, but not the same thread. According to my gauge, this is a 20 thread per inch, or 20 TPI. So what this is a thread file, and on there it will have numbers. For instance, this is 20 and 24. What that will do is, if you take it, then you can actually grind down, and if you want, you can look at it too when you're first looking or trying to figure it out, if you have the right one, just to see if they match. And this one does. But basically what you do is you just kind of grind it down. It's kind of a weird process, but over a section of time, if you're patient, you can go ahead and get it taken care of pretty easily, and that screw will go on. Because as it sits right now, it's not going to screw on. I put it together on, well, I put the top on, but I put the flywheel back on. I put the seal in. I found another one that fit very well. So it has a new seal. Not really sure what for. Pretty sure it's for a chainsaw, an Echo chainsaw of all things, that I actually didn't need. But technically this is an Echo engine to begin with. So one final note, usually when you buy these, you get a set of them. So, and the handle goes on either side, so each side has 4 thread patterns on there, and then you take the handle off and there's 4 more on the other side. So I have it on choke. I have the plug in. Let's see what happens. Got something a little bit more. Wow, that was loud. Oh yeah, by the way, I didn't put the muffler on either. If anyone tells you you don't need a muffler, A, they're stupid, and B, they're obviously deaf. They're the ones that are going to be saying huh all day. But yeah, I think we're pretty good. I don't know anything to do with this carburetor, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the muffler back on, put the side cover back on. It's nothing real rocket scientist. All you need to do is just put the 4 screws back in and call it good. Muffler, same thing, just put it back on and we'll tune this. So I ended up putting it all together. Now, spark plug I left unplugged until the end, which we are now here. To tune this, at least for this car, we're going to need a flathead screwdriver, which I have a small one here, and a Phillips head screwdriver. That is for the idle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on, let it idle, probably turn you off because I want to warm it up a little bit, and you don't need to hear like a minute or two of just idling. And then I'll bring you back and we will tune. Brief, I mean, it might need a lot of tuning, it might need no tuning, I don't know. But basically how I like to do it is I like to start with the low. I like to get it idled just right, where it's running good, you're not seeing a lot of smoke or any smoke really while idling, assuming that you didn't put oil down the cylinder. If that will always happen, but if it's normal, you shouldn't see little to no smoke when it's just idling. Then I'll rev it up. I'll rev it up to the point where it screams, and I'll just adjust it, and then I'll make it rich. just a little rich, and then I will go back to the idle and see if it has changed at all, because sometimes it can, not more likely than not it won't. But what it does allow you to do is you can hear how it goes from full to idle. If it practically wants to die, you know you have a low problem. But if it goes low to idle or high to idle and sounds fine, your idle is probably okay. Same thing, your low screw can also be a very big part in how it revs up. So if you press down to full throttle immediately and it bogs, don't necessarily assume it's all of the high end. You do want to make sure that you have adequate fuel on the low and high, so keep that in mind. So hopefully that helps out a little bit. And we have a muffler on, so we shouldn't deafen ourselves. Let's see if we even have to turn the choke on. Probably. So what just happened there? One, well, you saw me not use my undeveloped third hand, unfortunately. So usually I like to keep it full throttle while I'm turning the screws, but in times like this, I can hear an obvious difference. So when I first started it and I tuned the idle, turning it to full throttle was very rich, very rich. You saw that because there's a lot of blue smoke. You can tell it just bogging down, but not because of lack of fuel, but because of too much fuel. So I leaned it out to the point where it did kind of scream. I made it just a little richer. And then I went back to the idle. Idle is a little slow. Now, while this is on the ground, it shouldn't move. So I like to put like something that's not going to injure myself, like I put a screwdriver on the tines. And if they're easily stopped, that's a good indication that your idle speed is set pretty good. There was no blue smoke during the last idle, so that tells me that my fuel is good for that. So yeah, I think we're pretty good. Only other thing I would say is I'm going to probably fully tighten that plug. I think that might just be hand tight. I'll double check. I might have tightened it with the impact, but other than that, that's about it. It has a new carb already. new air filter. The plug was fine. I put in a good used one, and obviously it's working. I think I'm just going to clean up the tines a little bit, and this is a good little machine to be passed on to a new person. So I'm really glad that I didn't take off the cylinder head, because that would be a whole level of work I don't want to have to do. And I don't have the gasket either. I have the rings, but no gasket. And while you can fudge that, I'd much rather not. So here we are. So hopefully this helped out. If you like what you see, keep watching. Actually, I never actually mentioned what was wrong. I do believe it was the seal and the timing. If I had to put money on it, I'd say the timing. No, I would say the seal, because there's really nothing on there. I mean, while I do believe it was a little off, I could have just been misseeing it, but the seal should not have come out when you first give it a tap or pull off the flywheel. That's for sure. So that seal is bad. There's two seals, a top and a bottom. Obviously, the bottom one's doing fine because the engine's running good now. So, not going to worry too much about that one. So, you know, just because if you have a low compression, but you also have a hard time starting, and we did kind of have a little bit of a hard time starting even when we put fuel down the cylinder. But here's the thing about that. This is a 2-cycle. It really doesn't like that. Like, there are some 2-cycles that no matter what you do, will just not start while doing that. I could have put starting fluid down. I did put brake cleaner. That is very similar, but it's not the same. So, and it did kind of pop and do a couple other things, but that's it. So I do believe it was the seal. That seal is going to allow too much air to get in the cylinder, and or the low end of the cylinder, and then that lean mixture will then be forced up into the combustion chamber and will not actually ignite. It might not even force all the way up. With that seal gone, it very well might just shove all the fuel, which I didn't really see all that much of, but it also won't have a way to really suck it in either. So when it's drawing fuel, it's drawing in air. When it's pushing fuel out, it's pushing air out, and maybe a little bit of fuel. So that seal is very important. Okay, I rambled enough. Have a good night. Subscribe. Catch me in the next video. Have a good night.